Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, I'm so happy. Today, we are so lucky to have Becki Saltzman with us. Becki, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Becki, we will talk about some very exciting things, and we can all see your background, and we can all see how thought-provocative it is. We will talk about very thought-provocative topics today, especially critical thinking. Correct?
Yes.
And um, and just to give a bit of background, critical thinking in an age of artificial intelligence, as we discuss it a lot in the irreplaceable community, critical thinking is becoming more and more important because in a world where deepfake is governing our world, where it's more and more difficult to understand what is reality and what is not, when all those systems are giving us some outputs that we don't even know if they are true or not, if they are the fruit of hallucinations or not, the facts and the capacity to be able to criticize, to question, to triangulate, to check all this is more and more important. And so that's an aspect of critical thinking, but I'm sure we'll discuss about the broader the broader aspects of it. Becki, so happy to have you with us. And
Thank you. Thank you.
maybe you want to say a little bit about yourself as an introduction. You have some LinkedIn courses, some books. I mean, look, you are a Chief Curiosity Officer.
Chief Curiosity Seeker, the official title. So I pretty much grew up in a cabinet of curiosities. My father was an auctioneer. And so, industrial warehouses, old abandoned office buildings, those were kind of my playgrounds growing up. And so we learned very early on that what you see is never all that there is. So this idea of embracing skepticism separate from and distinct from cynicism was something that I was just brought up with. And, parlayed that into a number of different careers. But for the last decade, I have been working in this field of curiosity, specifically distinct curiosity, free range curiosity as distinct from applied curiosity. So, free range curiosity being more like
Okay.
basic science, applied curiosity being more like applied science, using curiosity specifically to achieve specific things. And
Mhm.
from that, to achieve something that becomes a truth filter. How do I know if this is really true? Which is 2,500 years of tradition, thank you, Socrates, of critical thinking. So, and then
So I
took
understand.
that,
I understand now the link between curiosity and critical thinking. It's
yeah,
about being curious, being curious to basically question what we see, curiously, like a kid would do, basically. Like, why dad? Why this is like this? Why is this like that? And this is an opportunity to rethink things, and think critically about what we think we know.
absolutely. And really distinguishing between critical thinking and strategic thinking and creative thinking, although there's always overlap. A lot of times people think
Yes.
that critical thinking is just about being smart. Like, oh, that's a smart person, therefore they're a critical thinker. And critical thinking is not at all about being smart. I mean, if you're smart, that's great. You're gonna, but critical thinking is really a learned skill that requires practice, and it's really distinct from strategic thinking, analyzing trends over time, or even the five whys. It's really, how can I find out if this is really true? What it's really evaluating the quality of information that you use to judge what to believe and what to do about that, like how to
Mm.
decide. So that's really distinct. And so then we created these frameworks and then got into then LinkedIn. We've ended up doing a lot of work with LinkedIn Learning, a whole series of things on critical thinking, and analytical thinking's coming out in January. So
How,
that's
how
really
many
our
how many
niche.
courses? How many courses did you?
Well, okay, so there's two ways of looking at it. If you look at all the languages, then it's an easier thing because it's like 52 courses. It's
Wow.
52 courses because they've translated not all the courses, but a lot of the courses into many, many languages. But I think
Okay.
the core is 14 or 15 courses that have, and we've got courses on noise, meaning variation in judgment where you don't want variation, not like signal and noise, all the way to, communicating with logic and stuff like that. So that's kind of our unique niche and what we do with corporations and what we do with LinkedIn. So that's really it, is to make sure that people have
Excellent.
the opportunity to learn not only what critical thinking is, but what it isn't, and then apply some frameworks so that
And when you say we,
our company, my
oh,
company is Applied Curiosity Lab.
okay.
So yeah,
So you have a lab, and yeah, you have experts working with you on the same
yes,
topic,
it's a
and you
small
publish.
company,
Yeah.
but we do workshops all over from here up, and then and really focused on applied curiosity, critical thinking for decision making. That's
Excellent. Excellent. And you work mainly for companies, or uh, yeah, in
we
the
don't
business
we
context, or yeah.
yeah, all business. We've had a few nonprofit organizations, and then the individual content is mostly through LinkedIn, although we are launching next year. We have these curiosity archetypes, so you can go on the website and take a quiz and find out
Mm,
what curiosity
nice.
archetype. And then we're coming out with our first non-LinkedIn learning online course that will be on our website on how to use the archetypes in various contexts. So that's
Excellent.
one of our projects for 2025.
Excellent. And you wrote 2 books, correct?
Yeah, now those books were kind of an iteration. Like I said, I had several different careers, and one of them was I was in retail buying, so fashion buying, and then I was in real estate and had a real estate team and ran that for a number of, well, almost 20 years. And then meanwhile, while doing that, I was kind of doing the background research for this company, so kind of playing both
Got
sides.
it.
And then so wrote one book that's kind of a book on curiosity and kind of real estate and more of a sales book, and then another one called Living Curiously, which is a method of using curiosity kind of more toward a personal growth and less toward critical thinking and decision making. So those
Got
are the
it.
two books back in
Okay,
the day.
excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
So I mean, we look forward to hearing from you on how can we be better critical thinkers? What is, I mean,
All
is there
right.
methodology to that? To do that? How do you transform people?
All right. So here I find for me is I transform when I have a framework to work off of and less ethereal. I need kind of concrete, measurable things. So, for example, in our high stakes decision making coaching, we use key decision indicators. So we have KDIs, and that way you know that the quality of your decision is measured in these KDIs. For critical thinking, first of all, we talk about the 3 legs of the good thinking stool, and we really specify that critical thinking is evaluating the quality of information. So and we have the 7 elements of critical thinking, which is called pick pack. And each of those stand for something, and you pick apart your thinking, and it's a very easy way to make sure you're covering it. Uh, it's purpose, information, questions, perspectives, assumptions, concepts, and conclusions. And those are the elements. Information, people sometimes say, what are, if I'm going to do one thing, so I really understand critical thinking, because it is really a scrutiny of the quality of information. Information is probably like, I mean, you have to have a purpose to kind of know what your decision making, but information scrutiny, given our age of information overload, is probably one of the most important. So we have a framework within a framework for that we call RRV, how to assess reliability, relevance, and validity, and how to assess those separately without mushing them up so you don't end up with fallacies in your thinking, and
Mhm.
then how to roll that up into an information score. So when you are confronted with information, there are some certain things that you look for. For example, before you even assess RRV, for example, did the information come to you unsolicited? Well, at that point, your level of skepticism needs to be a little higher than if
Mm,
you went looking for that information.
mm.
So did it just show up in front of your sensories, in your
Yes.
eyes or your ears, whatever? Or did you go
Like a
seeking?
scam, huh? Like a
Yeah.
scam.
Yes.
Yeah.
So where did it come from? Like if you went and offered to give someone money on the street versus if they came up to you, there's a
Mm,
different level of skepticism depending on the initiation. So that's kind of one of the things,
mm,
just an easy thing to do. And then you assess the RRV. Is our reliability has to do with the source. Is the source trustworthy? Now, you can get into an ad hominem fallacy because you can have an untrustworthy source that still provides valid information. So you want to assess each of these separately. Is the source trustworthy? By trustworthy, we mean, are they honest and are they credible? Well, honesty, sometimes you know, sometimes you don't. It's hard to know,
yeah.
but are they credible? Meaning, do they have expertise in the area of information that they're providing information about, And you give a score. Low reliability 1, high reliability 5. Then it's relevance. Is this information really pertinent to your decision, to your purpose, which is why you have to identify your purpose. And this is how you balance overthinking and underthinking. I mean,
Mm,
if you type in overthinking into Google, you'll get a definition. You type in underthinking, you'll get a red line because it's like not a word. But it's a huge problem. That balance, that productive balance between overthinking and underthinking. So relevance says, does this even matter to your purpose and your decision? And we've all had it where we're making some decisions and someone throws in some red herring and you're like, oh yeah, I guess I should care about that. And is it really relevant to the decision? So assessing that. And then the third thing is validity, RRV.
mhm,
And validity asks, is there a claim? And is there support for that claim? And is the support for that claim comprehensive and not misleading? And it can be misleading by accident. I mean, someone could be biased or whatever, and it can be misleading on purpose, like through
mhm.
manipulation. So if you're going to take away one thing from critical thinking, the scrutiny of information, I mean, that's one of the most important things is reliability, relevance, and validity.
Mm,
And practicing not conflating the two, because sometimes you'll say, well, that's really not true. So that means that that's not a reliable source. Well, no, you could have a reliable source
mhm,
that gives invalid information. You could have an unreliable source that gives valid information.
mhm,
And if you only assess information based only on the reliability of the source, then you are not scrutinizing the information, you're scrutinizing the person. And like we
mm.
say, all information, no information is above scrutiny and no person is beneath dignity. So you can dignify the
So
person.
believing everything that the Wall Street Journal says, because we would say, yeah, that's a source that is trustworthy, is not a good thing. Huh? We need to reassess,
Yeah,
maybe
and
less
discounting.
frequently.
Yeah, and discounting someone that is unreliable, you can
Mhm,
discount, you might discount the person, but you still should check on the validity of the information because bad people can still provide valid information.
mm,
And so, and to the extent that it's relevant to your purpose and decision, it would be underthinking to ignore it.
yeah, love it.
So that's kind of like if I was to
Yes,
say, okay, that's the short version of how to begin to think critically, that would be it.
excellent. Thank you, Becky.
Sure.
I mean, what are other aspects that we need to think about? What can we what can be a target, a goal in mastering critical thinking and curiosity? Uh,
I think that one initial goal starting with curiosity, because there's the mindset stuff, which is kind of ethereal and can be a little mushy, but it's important because then you're ready for the pragmatic,
Correct.
measurable stuff.
Mm,
So the right mindset is to elevate curiosity ahead of criticism, judgment, fear, and complacency. And the story I remember so well was when I was little and I mentioned my father was an industrial auctioneer. So sometimes he had a bunch of junk, and we were always having these garage sales. It was, and I learned to love sales in that context. And one day, this car comes careening down our street and kind of crashes into our driveway. And we jumped out, and this woman comes out of her car, and she's stumbling, and she looked completely drunk. I mean, she looked totally out of it. And something about my mother, and my mother was very much a proponent of starting with curiosity so you don't land on faulty conclusions, you know? Um, be careful of assumptions, all those kinds of things. Very much kind of drove that in. Question, question, question. Probably she probably learned to hate that she taught us that, but you know, we liked it. So this woman comes out of her car. My mom comes up, and she's all of a sudden she takes this woman into the house. Now, my mom wasn't inviting strangers into the house kind of gal, but she did. 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes later, the woman comes out, and she was completely lucid and normal. It turns out that my mother, rather than saying, "Get out of here, you drunken whatever," or calling the police, my mother somehow ascertained that she might be having heading toward a diabetic coma, and
Uh-huh.
took her into the house, asked her a few questions, and offered her some orange juice. And after, maybe 5 minutes, she comes out, and she's completely lucid. And I remember thinking, because we were there were a couple of other parents there. They were all like, oh, judging,
Yeah.
judging, judging, criticizing. Some were like, just, I don't want to, complacent or fearful. All of those things need to come deprioritized with curiosity being elevated. So that's the mindset, because that also means you can turn that scrutiny on yourself. And that's
Mhm.
where it can become very challenging. But good thinking, as we call good thinking, is examined thinking that prioritizes accuracy. And that isn't necessarily the most obvious thing. I mean, sometimes you're prioritizing collaboration or a sense of belonging, and those are wonderful priorities. I mean, but good thinking specifically is examined thinking that prioritizes accuracy. And that means you've got to be able to turn that curiosity back on himself. And that can be, ooh, sometimes.
Yes.
Yes.
But very useful to improve ourselves and to,
Yes.
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 Huh?
I mean, it's necessary. And, I know in your books you talk about, um, stress tolerance and change preparedness. And I mean, it's just not even an option. I mean, it's, if you are not prepared for this rapid rate of change, I don't know what the alternative is. I mean, I just don't know I don't know what the alternative is. And to do that, I think it helps to start with prioritizing curiosity. We can search
Yeah.
for and find all the questions and all the answers that have ever been asked and answered, but only curiosity inspires the questions that results in the answers we don't yet have access to. And without curiosity, new answers will cease to exist. So it's really I think the most important tool for exactly what you propose is one of the most important things
Yes.
for us as humans.
Yes. How can we train our curiosity on a daily basis, or can?
Give ourselves time for curiosity. Now, if you think about curiosity as two kinds of curiosity, in the literature totally kind of, it doesn't, we call it this, but the literature led us to call it this, which is that childlike sense of wonder, free range curiosity that we always lament that we lose as we get older. And I don't think we become less curious as we get older. We just shift from the free range curiosity to applied curiosity, trying to use curiosity to achieve goals, solve problems, those kinds of things.
Yes.
So the most important thing in beginning the cultivation of curiosity is to set aside time for curiosity and consider all of your senses. As humans, we
For,
over rely on our eyes.
for the free range
Free
curiosity.
range.
Huh? So
Yes.
dedicate some time in the day for the free range curiosity. That,
And use all the senses. Don't
yes.
just see, don't just hear, but 5 minutes a day to practice.
Okay. So it can be like, for example, 5 minutes you go outside, or even you still sit in your couch in your living room, and you just, yeah, don't do anything. Huh? You
But
don't do anything. Yeah,
perceive
passive. Yeah.
what that's kind of and that to me, like I hear mindfulness and sometimes I'm like, how do you do it? But this is really more goal oriented. What am I hearing that I wouldn't have been hearing if I wasn't being
Yes.
curious? What am I smelling? What am I seeing? What am I tasting? And just start practicing. And it's easy for me to say because I'm blind as a bat, but it's just start practicing using some of your other senses,
Uh-huh.
practice with that. That is like the first step. And then the next step is to start to get comfortable asking yourself the counterfactual. What does it look like if I was wrong or if I am wrong about this? And trying to start moving away from the confirmation bias, which is really not being curious. It's looking for evidence to support your hypotheses and to say, what is the disconfirmation? And that I mean, to me, that's how you get comfortable. That's how you build stress tolerance with change is, what does it look like for me to be wrong? And just all the different ways. What does it smell like? What does it sound like? What does it feel, look like? And getting used to that before you even talk to anyone else about it, because it's hard when you start bringing someone else in. You're like, we get defensive. But that kind of practice, just basic practice in free range curiosity. And then, on our website, if anyone wants to go to appliedcuriositylab.com, there's
Okay.
a archetype quiz, and you can take the archetype quiz for free. And you can find out your default way. These are just archetypes that we developed kind of out of the literature and the science of curiosity. What would these archetypes look like to make it kind of more fun? Your default way of looking at curiosity. Once you know that, then you can learn about the other defaults and you can go steal from them to expand your we say it, lean in to sharpen your curiosity tool, borrow from the others to add to your curiosity tool belt. And then when you're forming teams and you want to strategically form teams, you can actually strategically form teams where that your curiosity tool chest is full, like if toolbox rather is full. If you don't have one or two kinds of archetypes, then you got to step up and be able to ask those questions, because otherwise you're going to have big gaps in any kind of analysis. So those are some fun, concrete things you can do.
Excellent. I love it. Is there a risk of being too curious
Yeah.
or over curiosity?
Yes. I mean, absolutely. Curiosity, I mean, it's a controversial thing. I mean, throughout history,
Yeah.
curiosity has not
And
been something
we've
that,
been taught, as a kid, you don't be so curious. Don't be so,
yeah.
don't
And,
ask those questions.
and so there is an absolute risk. And part of it is, and that gets into, in Pick Pack, the Q part of Pick Pack is questions. How do we ask what we call MVQs, most valuable questions? And one of the things is to, after you consider your goal, whether it's information seeking or impression management, what is the context? And context is a lot. I mean, you don't want to ask the same question of your client in front of their competitors at a big conference that you might ask in their conference room. I mean,
Yes.
context matters. So sometimes I feel too curious, I have to admit, and I have to bite my tongue because I want to know the answer, but the context is wrong, so
Yeah.
that's, and then the other thing with that question, I think it is, I mean, more curiosity is not always a good thing. We have a tool, throwing out a lot of things, but we have a tool called peak curiosity. And we deal with this in our workshops. Have you ever gone to buy something and you are about ready to buy it? Could be a car or computer, but like a major purchase, and you're ready to buy. You've done your research, you're ready to buy. And they start asking questions rather than make you feel comfortable that you're ready to buy. They start asking questions that pique your curiosity. Like, you know, it's not the best time to make a person that's about ready to agree with you and be persuaded to all of a sudden pique up their curiosity. You know, if you're about to ask someone to marry you, that's not the most important time to make them curious about something that they never knew about you, you know.
Yes.
Whereas, you
Yeah.
know, on a first date, that's a different story. So
Yes.
there's different levels of curiosity for different contexts and goals.
Yes. And the right timing.
Yes. Yes. Totally.
That's very, very, very useful. Thanks. And it's very concrete. So we know how to apply it and how that's a very, very that's priceless. Thank you. Thank you so much, Becki.
Oh, good.
Um, Now in the context of a world of AI,
Mm-hmm.
what are your recommendations for both critical thinking, curiosity? Uh, it can be using AI to mentor us in those areas, but also AI being a risk and us being more skeptical and yeah.
Perfect. So, okay. So I don't remember, maybe it was Upton Sinclair that said it's hard to get a person, he probably said a man, to understand something when their livelihood relies on them not understanding it. So it's very difficult sometimes to get a clear picture of, you know, the beautiful, wonderful, amazing things that artificial intelligence, whatever that's going to mean, um,
Mm,
will mean, does mean, etc. And it's very difficult because as much as we know about AI, and some people know a tremendous amount, and some people have a vibe of it, and some people like you, experts that know, I mean, that know a lot, when we're comparing it to our own kind of human capabilities, we know less about where our own thoughts come from. I mean, it seems like we have these unique capabilities as humans, the ability to love, the ability to create in certain ways based on our experience, but you know, we still haven't answered the hard problem of consciousness. So we might
mm,
know a lot about AI or
mm.
not as much, but we don't quite know as much about how this
Oh,
neck-top computer works,
yeah,
as much
definitely.
as we feel that we know. So that
Yes.
being said, I think that's exciting. I think that's, most people are like, oh, I think that's super exciting because, but it's also not without risk, you know? So I think to be a skeptic is so much better than to be a cynic or to be
Wow.
all in. Like, I'm all in. I'm going head first. This is only ever going to be beautiful. Or this is horrible. I'm not going to touch it. I think reflective skepticism, which is critical thinking, is exactly the tool we need to bring. So we can poke at it, we can test it, we can see, but we shouldn't fool ourselves too much that until we have solved the neck-top computer issue, we don't really know what we're comparing it to. We might know a lot here, but no matter what, theoretical physics,
Mm.
molecular biology, we're still in the early days of this.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Definitely.
and
Definitely.
I think, again, then you choose. Is that scary? No, it's exciting.
Mm.
Maybe we're going to see the next phase of human evolution. Maybe it didn't stop with the ascent of man like this and we leveled out. Maybe we're going to see the next phase of evolution. And that could be a very interesting, exciting
You
thing.
mean the merging with technology, for example? That's
Yes.
what you
Cyborgs. Oops.
yes.
Oops. I knocked over. Yay. Cyborgs. Here we come.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's exciting. And I I saw a post that you did recently that talked about some prompts, for example, that we can share with those large language models and that help us understand better things or understand better how we can trust them, for example.
I think turning AI, the mirror back, you know, turning the first part of this conversation was how can we turn the mirror on ourselves? You know, how can we become more curious? How can we be self-reflective? How can we scrutinize our own thoughts? How can we find disconfirming evidence so that we're not being led astray by our own wishful thinking? But the same thing can be done with AI, is to turn that mirror back on itself and say, okay, help me find out where you're screwing me up. Tell me all the ways that you could be leading me astray. You know, that's a fun exercise. If you ever do, I mean, you probably have done all that, but it's kind of shocking. You can ask, AI to tell you. They're going to be a lot more, AI is going to be a lot less annoyed with those kinds of questions than your best friend. Tell
Yes.
me all the ways you could be wrong. Your best friend's not going to give you the same answers. AI will answer. It will tell
Yes.
you, and you can poke and find out. So, you know, I mean, that's incredible. If my friend said to me, tell me all the ways that you're wrong, or that you could be manipulating me, or tell me all the ways you could be leading me astray, you know, you go to buy a car and you say, hey, salesperson, tell me all the ways you're going to be selling me a bill of goods. They're going to be like, I'm not selling. You ask AI, they'll tell you. They'll tell you. It'll tell you. I love that.
From what I see, and I'm helping a lot of companies implementing those AI systems, and one of the critical skills that I tell them is important in their teams is curiosity, because of the fact that it helps people to get to know AI basically, and to try it, and so it's an applied curiosity, if I understand well. Uh,
Absolutely.
and 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 this is, in my view, the best mindset to have in a world where AI is changing so fast that those trainings that we used to have are now becoming obsolete right on the day where they are released. Uh, so it's really about what I explained. It's really about employees, teams to embed into their work and lives this capacity to always keep themselves aware and curious of what is new coming out, trying it, experimenting it, and this is worth thousands of hours of traditional training.
How do you deal with companies where questioning authority is not in the DNA and questioning the status quo is not in the DNA of the company?
Those are tough questions, I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you have
do
an
they?
answer to that?
Well, I mean, that's, I will tell you, I mean, we have had people come to us and say, we want your training, you want your workshop, we
Yes.
want a critical thinking workshop, or we want an applied curiosity workshop, or the good thinking decision framework. And, we want to make sure that before we come in, we're not giving people something that they don't want. Organizations have different cultures. And so if you are a forward-thinking culture who invites scrutiny and values innovation and values the kinds of things that you're bringing, um, and that seems like, well, wouldn't every company? No, a lot of companies hire very smart people at the top and really want people who can execute without scrutiny
Mhm.
on those plans, whether it's from the board or from the senior leaders. So if that is the case, then we tell them that I can make great referrals to other people who do great workshops, maybe on, motivation or, something else, but not
Yes.
critical thinking and not
Wow.
applied curiosity,
Yes.
because those over reliance on authority is a curiosity killer. Siloed
Yes.
structures is a curiosity killer. Over reliance on labels, curiosity killer. So there's these things, and if those are, you know, part of the corporate structure and part of the corporate DNA, it's going to be a lot of our content's
Well,
going to
how do
involve a
you
lot of
solve?
friction.
Yes, definitely. How do you solve this? I mean, if you assess that in a company,
We tell them that our stuff is not for you. I
okay.
mean, it's just not, because,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
all products. I mean, we are not,
Yeah.
our stuff is not for every company, and that's okay. Like, you just got to be honest,
Yes.
not everyone, I don't want to marry everyone on the street.
Mhm.
You don't want this content. I mean, I
Yes.
think it's super important, but there are
Yes.
other companies that work perfectly fine where questioning the boss is verboten. And that's just not, we're not going to be able
Yes.
to, Now,
Yes.
if you want to break that, like sometimes we have a board of directors, they say, hey, that is the culture. Can you help us change the DNA? For sure. But if no one at the top wants to change that DNA, then it's not, it's not going to work. And it's just a way. And then, for example, one of the things in PICPAC is concepts. So it really has to do with clarifying concepts. And one of the things we do is we take very common concepts like success, even intelligence, even artificial, taking these concepts, could be sustainability. And every time we have multiple definitions, all solid definitions, but a lot of competing definitions. And even when it is that concept is on their values on their website, there is very rarely a complete understanding of these concepts.
Yes.
So when we talk to these companies and they say, yes, we want curiosity, they might be thinking creativity. And a lot of times people conflate those curiosity. And so we need to make sure that when they come to us, we're very clear about what critical thinking means, what curiosity means, so that they're not buying something where we're talking about a different concept.
Of
so
course.
that clarity of
Completely makes
concept.
sense. Yeah, completely makes sense.
Yeah.
Becki, the time is ticking, and I'm conscious of your time.
Thank
Is
you.
there anything final thing that you want to share with us?
No, but I'm excited about your upcoming book.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
So the book on the book on the agents, AI agents. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's from everything I've read, the timing could not be more perfect. Are we gonna all have a digital twin? Pascal, you think we're gonna all have a digital twin?
That would be amazing. That would bring some risks as well, but that would be, imagine having a coach every day with you from the time you've been a kid till now, who knows
You know what?
everything and can help you take the best decisions for you and for the rest of the world.
Except for something. Sometimes I'm sick of myself. I don't want two of myself. It's like wherever I go, there I am. I'm like, enough already. But
Yeah.
if one could fold laundry, that'd be nice.
Yes. One can follow.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks to you, Becki. That was really, really useful. We've learned a lot. And of course, I mean, we would need at least 3 hours together to get through all of
And I
this,
just threw
because
out a bunch of stuff.
we haven't touched about curiosity and creativity. Maybe there is something there as well that is very, very interesting. I mean, a lot of avenues for other discussions. Becki, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wish you great holidays in advance.
You too.
And to the audience, thank you very much for following us, and see you next time.